yeah. Emergency edition. Please bear with me. Scotty Swingler live from Studio 3 in the Alico building, Rogue Media. Man, good to see you. We signed off, 9 days ago with our last kind of regular Sunday night episode, and here we are. I did say that we were going to do this at 8 o'clock today, and then Life of a Producer, the show I work on in the mornings, moved up an hour. We had to change some things around, so I had to change some things around. So here we are. It's 11 a.m. here in Central Texas, and I wanted to discuss Doug McNamee, brand new athletic director at Baylor University. We started hearing about this over the weekend. Baylor, of course, made it official, I think Sunday. And then, of course, the introduction was yesterday, press conference, meet and greet with the public, all of that. I do have some inside information. And really what I want to do today is I've seen very mixed reactions to this hire. I resonate with both sides of the mixed reaction. I understand why, on one hand, this hire could feel completely deflating after your president essentially like de facto extended your football coach another year. To hire kind of a Baylor guy who hasn't been in college athletics for a long time can feel like mailing it in, can feel like taking the easy route, could feel like hiring a puppet actor for the president. All of those reactions, I just want to say, I understand the optics and why you would feel that way. Today, I actually want to make the bull case for Doug McNamee, and I want to lean into the other side, which is, and I'm seeing some of this online too, right? Which is that this is a good hire. This is an innovative hire. This is outside the box. This has the potential to be huge for Baylor. I think, after sitting with it for a couple days and sitting with my own feelings about the state of the athletic department for a couple days, and there's a reason I'm doing this today. I wanted to get Doug's words, documented and sit with those overnight. And after doing so, I am fairly bullish on this hire, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. So let me give you the reason Baylor hired Doug McNamee, and there are two primary ones. And then I'll tell you why it could work. And then I'll kind of watch the comments here and try to respond to a few of you and understand why it may not work. And I'm totally on board with that, by the way. Totally on board with the fact that 4 years from now, we could look back at this hire and say, what a dumb, disastrous idea. Like when you innovate and when you do something that's outside the box, it's brilliant if it works and it's idiotic if it doesn't work. And that's kind of where we're sitting right now with the hiring of Doug McNamee. But I'm going to give you the bullish case today and why I think it will work. Doug McNamee was hired for two reasons. Let me start with what I'll call reason B, the second reason he was hired, and then I'll tell you the main reason he was hired. The second reason Doug McNamee was hired, reason B, is because Scott Drew wanted it. Now, make no bones about it. Like Coach Drew is giving credit to President Livingstone for this. He is deflecting any thoughts that he kind of threw his weight around. And listen, Scott Drew is not Kim Mulkey. Okay, Scott Drew is not going to throw his weight around to get what he wants, threaten to leave. Like that's not Coach Drew's style. But don't for a second think that Scott Drew did not have a voice in this decision. And I guess what I would say to Baylor fans who are cynical about this is, wouldn't you want Scott Drew to have a voice in this decision? Like, I would certainly rather it be Scott Drew's preferred candidate than Dave Aranda's preferred candidate, wouldn't you? I would certainly rather it be who Scott Drew wants than who Nikki Collin or Mitch Thompson wants, right? Because Scott Drew is the most valuable asset you have at the university. Point blank, period, indisputable to me. Okay. There are 8 active Division I basketball coaches who have won national championships, which means at worst, by my standards, you have the 8th best basketball coach in America at your school. And I don't think he's 8 of 8. I think he's probably more like 4 or 5. I think he's probably a top 5 basketball coach in America. We can be critical about recent tournament success. We can nitpick some of the roster construction over the past couple seasons. I get it. Scott Drew is adjusting to the new era and the demands of NIL just like everybody else. So he is not perfect or completely absolvent of any blame. But the reality is, less than half a decade ago, Baylor won the national championship. And really should have won it in 2020 before, the virus canceled the tournament, right? And that's a credit to Scott Drew. And anyone who tries to diminish that accomplishment or act like a national championship and the second biggest revenue-generating sport in college athletics isn't a big deal, you're a bonehead. I don't even want to engage in that conversation with you. Scott Drew is the most valuable asset for this university, not only because of the national championship, Foster Pavilion, hello, but also because of what he can do off the court. Now I want you to just know, Scott Drew, unlike Dave Aranda, by the way, is a master at the podium. He sat up there in 2003 when he got hired as Baylor's basketball coach and said, we're going to win a national championship here. And he did. He freaking did it. What is more badass than that, right? He did it at Baylor after a murder scandal. Hello, okay? I still don't think this guy gets enough credit for who he is and what he's done for Baylor. But he's great in the microphone. He's great in the media, great in the public eye, great. All this Dave's got to repair his reputation in the Waco community. You know who has an A+ stellar reputation everywhere in this city? Scott Drew. You know who's known for volunteering in toddler Sunday school classrooms on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. after a 9 p.m. tip-off in Austin against Texas? Oh, that would be Scott Drew. He's everything Baylor wants to be on the good end and nothing Baylor's been at its worst, and a national championship head coach. He's the most valuable asset you have. Maybe not just in the athletic department, maybe at the university. Priority B for the new athletic director, whether it was Doug McNamee or someone else, is signing that man to a lifetime contract to make sure that if the Duke job opens up, because he's already told Kentucky no, he's already told Indiana no. If the Duke job opens up, if the Kansas job opens up, if Kentucky opens up again 5 years from now, Scott Drew needs to have every cent and every resource and every confidence to stay at Baylor until he retires. He is the Grant Taft of the basketball program, except more successful. Okay? I could talk for another hour about Scott Drew's importance to the university. Okay? So that's the second reason Doug McNamee was hired. Scott Drew has a great relationship with him, wants him in the role, thinks he will thrive in the role. And by the way, for all of us armchair quarterbacks, well, what does Scott Drew know? I'm seeing some of the comments, and I love you guys. Keep commenting. I'm not criticizing you for commenting, but, what does Scott Drew know about being an AD? More than us. Can we just be real? More than I do. I've never worked in the building. Have you? Okay? Scott Drew has way more insight into that than you or I or most people. So if Scott Drew says someone's going to be good at it, I'm going to trust him more than any, jag on Twitter, right? Okay. That's reason B why Doug McNamee took this job and was selected for this job. Reason A, and I need you to hear this, because the more I sit with it, the more I'm with Dr. Livingstone on this. Money. Money. It's really, for those that hate the corporatization, monetization, professionalism of college athletics. Dude, Pandora's box has been opened and it's not changing. So you either adapt with the times, or when the super conference gets formed in 3 or 4 years, you get left behind. The most important thing for Baylor athletics, yes, I agree, long-term, is fixing the football program. You cannot do that without money, and you cannot get into the super conference. You all know what I'm talking about. That's coming in 3 or 4 or 5 years. What will essentially become the semi-professional college football league, SEC, Big Ten, and whoever else is valuable enough to get in. You don't get into that thing without value. TV contracts, revenue, money. You may have seen just a few minutes ago the breaking news that Utah signed a $500 million capital investment deal. Guess what? Utah's getting into the super conference. So is BYU. They've got money out the wazoo. Look at what they're paying their basketball roster. If they win anything in basketball this year or not, doesn't matter. They've got the money to get into the super conference. Texas Tech is getting into the super conference. 5 years ago, they might have been on the bubble, right? Their football success wasn't wild. Their basketball was up and down. Chris Beard did some things, whatever. Okay. Now they've got the money. Baylor has to win football games again. Yes, of course. Of course. Duh. But I would suggest it might be a chicken or egg situation where which comes first, the money or the football success? And I'm starting to believe, and I think Linda Livingstone believes, and I think Scott Drew believes, and I think Scott Drew's smarter than me, that the money might come first. It certainly did for Texas Tech. I mean, they're the number 4 seed in the playoff. Hello. Like, I love Joey McGuire. I think he's a great coach. But that defensive front seven was bought. And why did they have a bye in the first round of the college football playoff, and why they dominated a very good BYU team twice. They bought a defensive front seven that might be the best in the country. Yeah. So how does Baylor compete with that? Yes, I see the angry commenters. I think we need a new football coach. I think Doug McNamee thinks that too, by the way. But more importantly, you got to have the resources to compete. Let me tell you why Doug McNamee is in a good position to get Baylor these resources, and why I think he will be successful. Scott Drew on the Matt Mosley show yesterday, which I produce here for Rogue Media. If you haven't watched it, tune in. He was on the phone for 10 minutes. It's a short conversation. He kind of let the playbook slip. He kind of let the cat out of the bag. And I don't know that he meant to, but he did. And he said, Baylor is uniquely positioned as a Protestant Christian institution to build partnerships with huge brands that want to invest in that, like Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby. Scott Drew said that. Scott Drew's not making stuff up off the cuff. Those are conversations that Doug McNamee is having. Now, I don't know if Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby are going to, by the way, I don't know if I want Baylor taking Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby money, especially if it comes with like any kind of political, weird stipulations, right? I don't want Baylor to be tied to an agenda, but here's what I do want. I do want that corporate money in our athletic department. And if Baylor's going to compete with what Utah did today, with what Texas Tech did this past offseason, they've got to bring in corporate dollars, and you can't just limit it to, well, I hope the Fudge family or the McLean family has more money. Like, sure, there's going to be big wig Baylor people that give good money for the right product. Great. We need them. We love them. We appreciate them. Thank you, Fudge family, right? But you got to start thinking corporate on this deal. So that's what Scott Drew said. And then both Dr. Livingstone and Doug McNamee kind of hinted at the same idea in the press conference yesterday, right? They talked about there are 4 religious R1 universities that compete in athletics at this level. 2 Catholic schools, BYU and Baylor. They're thinking beyond Baylor people, beyond Baptist people. They are thinking any brand, business, source of cash that ties itself to Jesus and isn't Church of Latter-day Saints and isn't Catholic should consider partnering with Baylor. And that is how we should be thinking. That is exactly how a businessman would do this rather than a traditional Power 4 AD. And I think it's bold, it's smart, and it puts Baylor in the right position to succeed moving forward. Now, I'm watching the comments. Thank you guys for chiming in. Keep it coming. Still some criticism here, although none of you are really engaging what I'm saying. Most of it still seems to be anger that Dave Aranda is our head football coach. So stop and breathe and think again about what Doug McNamee said yesterday. And I'm just going to quote him, okay? I'm not shilling for him. I'm quoting him. He said, "The football performance of late is unacceptable." Isn't that exactly what we said on this podcast for 3 months and what most of you have been saying in the comments? Okay, so he's agreeing with you. He said, "I've talked to Coach Aranda 5 times in the last 36 hours. Guys, you don't talk to a coach 5 times in 36 hours if the message is, hey, great job, I've got your back. Let me know how to support you. Some of those conversations, speculating, were, here is the expectation. Okay. All of you that have said we need the Bryles era back of success, or hey, we need someone like Matt Rule who gets his players up to play on Saturdays. Doug McNamee was involved in the hiring of Matt Rule. Doug McNamee was in the building when Art Bryles was hoisting trophies at Baylor. Doug McNamee isn't delusional about what Baylor's potential as an athletic department is, nor is he going to settle for 5-win seasons on the football field. I promise you. I promise you. So if your criticism is, well, why is Dave Aranda still here? Dude, Doug McNamee's been on campus 24 hours. Take it up with Dr. Livingstone. I'm with you. We Terrence and I did the episode where we were like, that letter's stupid. That decision doesn't make sense. Like, but listen, the guy is not going to accept what's happened for the last 3 seasons. He's not. If Dave Aranda opens next season 2-5, until he proves me wrong, I think Doug McNamee is going to put him on the street and say, go find a job as a DC. See ya. Thanks for the 1 championship and thanks for being a good person. But like, listen, he's not going to do that today. And, like it, lump it, leave it. Like, Baylor's made its decision about Dave Aranda. He's coming back. So, like, don't hold that against Doug McNamee for taking the job and saying the football's been unacceptable, saying he's constantly talking to Coach Aranda and saying he expects to win again. That's what we wanted to hear 3 weeks ago. But unfortunately, our AD was making choices in his personal life that aren't compatible with who Baylor wants to be. So take it up with him. Be mad at Mac Rhodes. Be mad at Mac Rhodes for extending Dave Aranda after 2023 when we won 3 games. Like, be mad at Mac Rhodes for the Dave Aranda thing. Don't hold it against Doug McNamee. That makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. So fixing the football program is absolutely priority A, but the reason he was hired was to get the money. And I think he can do it. I think he's going to do it. And I think that's how you fix the football program. And I think what he's going to do that Mac should have done, by the way, Mac Rhodes should have done this. Again, I think your anger needs to be directed towards Mac Rhodes. Doug McNamee is going to, over the next 8 months, systematically eliminate any excuse anyone, including Dr. Livingstone, could make to keep Dave Aranda here. He's going to eliminate that. He's going to throw his full support behind him in this portal, in this offseason, as we hire assistant coaches. I'm going to talk about Matt Pallage and potentially Jake Spavital leaving here in just a second. Doug is going to give Dave way more even than Mac did, so that if and when Dave Aranda fails once again to get Baylor playing to its potential, it is a quick, simple, easy decision to cut him. And again, if you're mad it's not happening today, take it up with Mac Rhodes and Linda Livingstone, not Doug McNamee. I have a feeling some of those phone conversations were not sunshine and roses. It was, and he kind of said this at the press conference, hey, we need to get back to hoisting trophies. Anything less is not acceptable here. That's what he said. I believe him. I believe him. And it's what I've been saying on this podcast for 3 months. So it is refreshing to me to hear an AD say the same thing and not make an excuse for Dave Aranda. Hey, good question. I see you bear the truth. Didn't he say he was in perfect alignment with the president, Dave Aranda? He did mention being in perfect alignment with President Livingstone and the university about the university's mission, which is great. I'm a Baylor person. I'm down with that. But he mentioned that the football's been unacceptable. He told Dave that we need more winning moments, that it's been unacceptable. And he said he and I will work well together. Okay, I'm not going to hold that against him either. Dave Aranda's an easy guy to work with and clearly a respectful person towards Doug. So, like, that's fine. I'd rather it be that than, well, I called Dave and told him the results have been unacceptable and he wasn't receptive to that. I mean, come on. Like, I'm not going to hold that against him, that he's trying to do the best he can in the rough situation President Livingstone has placed him in. Okay. But catch the vision. Corporate money, corporate revenue, corporate deals. That's what Doug McNamee opens up for this athletic department. That a Ren Baker or a Jared Mosley may not have been able to. By the way, Jeremiah Dickey has already been on the record saying this is a great hire for Baylor. He's a class act. He's going to be kind about it. But I know for a fact other Power 4 ADs were interviewed and interested in this job. So for the Dave Aranda prevented a real AD from coming here, so we had to hire Doug McNamee. That's not what happened. It's not what happened. You can believe that, but you're believing falsity. There were other Power 4 ADs who would have taken this job. It's an attractive job. I think Linda, Dr. Livingstone, has taken an incredible risk. It's not a safe hire. It's an incredible risk to hire someone who's been out of college athletics and in the business world. If it pays off, we're going to say she's a genius. And it can. And I'm trying to convince you that it can. I'm not convincing you it will. I'm trying to convince you it can pay off. When the money starts rolling in and Baylor can buy some players and some coaches. By the way, don't you want more money next fall to hire a good head coach, right? I'm trying to convince you that's possible, and maybe more possible with McNamee at the helm than it would be with others. And I believe it. I truly believe that. It could also not work. And I'll be the first one to tell you when it's not working, as I was with Coach Aranda. So, yeah, man. And I understand Cynical Bear and some others. I understand. I understand not trusting every word that comes out of Dr. Livingstone's mouth or every word that's kind of pitched here. But again, this is why I started this whole rant with Scott Drew. I understand mistrust of institutions, not just Baylor, but institutions largely, right? I understand mistrust, bear the truth, I see you, with the Board of Regents. I understand mistrust with all kind of areas. Dave Aranda, certainly, right? I don't understand how any Baylor fan, anyone who claims to love the university or the team or whatever, I don't understand how you could distrust Scott Drew, who just a couple years ago spurned the mecca of college basketball to stay in Waco, won a national championship 18 years after he promised he would. What a feat. And continues to now sign sons of NBA superstars because those NBA superstars believe Scott Drew can develop them into NBA players. Like, top 5 basketball coach in America. If he says Doug McNamee can do this job and do it well, I believe him. It's nice. What Linda Livingstone said is nice. What Doug McNamee said the other day, I think, by the way, everything he said yesterday was exactly how I feel. So I think he got the press conference right. Football's unacceptable. We need the money. I can do it. I love Baylor. We got to reach the mountaintop again. We need more wins. He said all of that. Fan experience. I've seen some of y'all being critical about the fact that he mentioned fan experience being important. Haven't all of you on Twitter, so many people, Drake Toll leading the Army, my guy, I love him, but like, the fan experience sucks. The fan experience sucks. The fan experience sucks. And Doug McNamee comes in and says, the fan experience sucks. And you're like, he doesn't care about winning. What do you want from the guy? He is echoing all the sentiments of the fan base, and some of you are mad at him for it. Get over it. Let him do it. Let him do it. If in 3 years the football team still sucks and the fan experience sucks, let's run him out of here. That's fine. By the way, I think he would tell you that's fine. I think he would tell you if 3 or 4 years from now he's failing, he needs to be replaced. So, like, I don't know why we're getting all up in arms about what he said. He said everything right yesterday. He is open to selling beer at McLean Stadium. Some of you will renew your season tickets just if they announce that. Like, let's give the guy some credit, okay? His vision is clear. His vision is good. And again, going back a few minutes, Scott Drew is the most valuable asset on the campus, more knowledgeable than you or me, the most successful in his job that anyone at Baylor has ever been, with the exception of Kim Mulkey, who did it also, right? And he believes in the guy. That's good enough for me. And that doesn't make me a shill, by the way. Just to be like, give you a peek behind the curtain. Baylor has refuted access for me to be at some of these, not yesterday because it was open to the public. I had a restaurant shift last night. I didn't go to the thing. I wanted to. But I haven't been given all the press kind of credentials at Baylor because I don't shill for the university. And I say that we need a new football coach. So you're not talking to like anybody that's like control. I'm not a mouthpiece for the university. In fact, I'm the opposite. I've had people in my life encourage me to be more of a mouthpiece for the university so I can get access, and I won't do it. Okay. So you're not talking to the naive, like Baylor homer. You're talking to a real Baylor fan who wants to see the same success you do. And you know what I see when I hear what Doug McNamee said yesterday? I see what I want and what I've been saying. I see a guy who gets it. It doesn't mean he'll be a great AD. We don't know. But he gets it. He said all the right things. And he has Scott Drew's full-chested endorsement. And we're already talking about corporatizing some money from big brand like Christian businesses stuff. That is entirely how Baylor gets into the super conference in 4 years. It is. You can't think about like next football season. You got to think about the next 10 years. You got to think about super conference. You got to think about money. You got to think about competing with Texas Tech financially. Doug McNamee appears as if he can help Baylor do that. And I think he is more willing to take big swings, big risk, and unconventional approaches than a Ren Baker, a Jared Mosley, a traditional AD, because of his corporate experience, which, again, that is the message Baylor was sending yesterday. But if Scott Drew believes it, I'm in. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Comments about uniform colors. I love that. It's funny. Yeah. Matt Mosley joked yesterday he needs to ask Doug McNamee if we can get the live Bears back in the stadium. I think that's hilarious. That was a good experience for me as a kid. Sorry, I'm reading through some comments you guys have left. Thanks for chiming in. If you're watching on Twitter, you can jump over to YouTube. Please bear with me. That's where I'm seeing all these live comments come in, and appreciate you. Ryan, I would be interested in knowing more. Ryan Pryor commented, corporate revenue is great. I think the Hobby Lobby Christian angle is illustrative of a misunderstanding of church history and the current religious landscape. I did go to seminary. I don't know if everybody knows that. I've studied church history. So Ryan, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying I would love to know your context. Maybe you can DM me. We can swap. And this is why I clarified. I don't love the idea of taking corporate money if it's tied to like political priorities. Baylor should not be in that business. I don't like taking corporate money if it endears us to a specific Christian religious stream of thinking. I think what I like about Baylor is, though it's distinctively Baptist, it's a lot broader than that. My best friends from my days at Baylor, one's a Presbyterian, one's a Methodist, one's a Southern Baptist, and everybody kind of felt at home at Baylor. Like Baylor needs to maintain that. But it would be a foolish thing to not try and find those streams of income that will come in because it's a Christian institution. Okay, Ryan, I see what you're saying. I'll throw it up since you commented publicly. Ryan said, Baylor's Christian environment has always been about character, service, and care towards anyone who attends, regardless of belief and background. The marketing of embracing seems odd. Yeah. So let me attempt to respond to that, because I think this is an interesting conversation point that will continue and has implications way beyond the athletic department, right? I agree with your sentiments, Ryan. I would be the first Baylor alum to like pull my support, struggle with the university if it became a more exclusivist environment. Okay. I think Baylor's ability to try and uphold traditional Baptist belief and be inclusive, that history is very imperfect, but I admire the effort and think, Baylor does it a lot better than most. Like, let's just be honest about who like Liberty is, okay, or some other schools. My experience at Baylor as a Baptist kid was obviously tremendous, and I grew in my faith. I have friends who experienced Baylor as other faiths, other sects of Christianity, not religious, etc. Like, and most had a tremendous experience, and that's invaluable, cannot be compromised. Baylor could probably even do a little more to be inclusive. So like with you, for you, all about it. I think the phrasing that McNamee and Dr. Livingstone used yesterday of embracing the Christian identity is more, it's a marketing strategy, dude. Like, I think it's just about the money, and that can feel a little sick. Okay. That can, especially for those of us who take our faith very seriously, that could probably promote some ick. Right. But it's about the money. And something BYU has kind of laid the roadmap for that I think Baylor would be foolish not to try to emulate is using that religious identity to raise money. It is easier for BYU because the Church of Latter-day Saints is one stream of thought, one stream of kind of religious conviction, one church. They are very uniquely distinct from other kind of Christian branches of faith, right? Like it is far more unified and kind of together. Whereas if you say Baptist, well, heck, there's like 100 different forms of Baptist in America. Not to mention, if we try to like encompass all Protestant churches, oh my gosh, now you're talking about some radically different people, like a Baptist, a Lutheran, a Church of Christ, and a Pentecostal walk into a bar. Like that's like insane. Okay. So it's not as simple as, I think BYU has a little bit less challenging road there, but I think Baylor, embracing the Christian thing to bring in revenue, to make athletics successful, to continue to prop up the university's success, which the university at its best is an R1 research university that embraces Christian character and isn't exclusive. If those two things can work together in synergy, which I know is Dr. Livingstone's goal, by the way, I know this for a fact. I've had enough discussions with people who know her well. Okay. That's a good thing. It's a good thing for Baylor. It's a good thing for the athletic department. It's a good thing for us as fans and alum. Okay. So I'm with you. Yes. Cynical Bear. I agree. Using the excuse Dave is a good Christian, we should keep him as a head coach, is terrible. That shouldn't, but in fact, you might have seen, I tweeted Spencer Danielson after Boise State won the Mountain West Championship, was like going on and on about loving Jesus after the game. And I literally, because it's how I feel, retweeted it and said, tag Dr. Livingstone and said, hey, look, this guy loves Jesus and wins championships. Okay. Like, so you're right. But, I think Baylor leaning into the identity is not a bad thing. Great question, Sheldon. I haven't mentioned this yet. What are your thoughts on Brian Newberry as a potential head coach? For those who do not know, Brian Newberry is the head coach at Navy. He was a DB at Baylor. He has been a very successful head coach at Navy for, I believe, 3 seasons now. He's been their head coach. He was their longtime defensive coordinator prior to that. So I actually, if you go back to like mid-season when I was throwing out candidates that I wanted to replace Dave Aranda, I always rated Brian Newberry higher than most people did. I feel like everybody was talking about Eric Morris. Everyone was talking about DJ Kinney, especially early in the season. Everyone was talking about John Summerall a little bit, but I was talking about Newberry that whole time. The 2 candidates that I think will still be on the board for Baylor next year that are really quality are Casey Keeler at Temple, who won a natty at Sam Houston State prior, and Brian Newberry. Casey Keeler, because I think he's a lot like Kurt Signetti. He's won everywhere he's been. He's a program builder. He's a no-nonsense coach. I think he's had 3 losing seasons and like 30-some-odd years of being a head coach. So I'm kind of a fan of the Casey Keeler idea. But Brian Newberry, he's not been a head coach anywhere but Navy, and he's not been a head coach very long. That's kind of the risk you take. He took the coordinator route. He's not the program builder. Like Casey Keeler started at like D3, right? That's not Brian Newberry's route. But I love the idea of Brian Newberry as a head coach. I was advocating for that 2 months ago. I think he would bring instant discipline to a football program that's been largely undisciplined. I think he would be quick to get a good OC here that runs a good offense. And I also think he would immediately be sprinting in Texas as a recruiter and a relationship builder. And he loves and knows Baylor. You should know, Sheldon, one of the first things I heard when Doug McNamee was hired, I got a text that said, he's really close with Brian Newberry. So I truly believe, for multiple reasons, that this time next year, there's a very good chance Brian Newberry could be our head coach, or was like the runner-up being interviewed. So it's a good connection, good question. Thanks for bringing that up. Hey, Cynical Bear, that's your best comment yet. Cynical Bear has been my most frequent commenter here, and it's mostly very negative about Dave. But here's what he said, and I appreciate this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Doug brings in all the money, fires Dave next year when we hire a kick-ass coach. But when the president literally lies to the entire fan base, that's hard. Sure, that's a really valid way to feel. I'm here today to convince you the bull case for Doug McNamee. Not saying it will happen. Not saying it's a guaranteed success, but saying I trust the vision. I think the strategy is much better than hiring another Power 4 AD and hoping. Like, you could hire another Power 4 AD and say, I hope he can raise money. I hope he can hire a good football coach. Doug McNamee can raise money and will. Doug McNamee does have high standards for Baylor football. Doug McNamee will fire Dave Aranda next year if he doesn't succeed. I promise. If I'm wrong, I don't know. I'll buy you all a shot. I don't know. Like, we'll find some way for me to get you back, Cynical Bear. But I'm just confident. And in what he said yesterday, he said all the things most fans have been saying for months, if not years, about fan experience, about winning, about culture, about needing to be successful, about needing to hoist trophies. Yeah. So I think it's going to work, and it may not. And if it doesn't, again, I'm not the mouthpiece for Baylor. I've been held out of certain circles because I'm not, and I'll do it again. I'll say it again in a couple of years. It didn't work. Full disclosure, I haven't said this yet because it's less important. His wife was a professor in the communications department. I took her class. Half the basketball team was in there with me. Rico Gathers, Isaiah Austin, to name drop a couple. And they all loved her, and they loved her because they loved him. He had great relationships with athletes. He had great relationships with coaches. So listen, he checks every box except the experience box. And that's a big box. It's a big box he doesn't check. It's a big box he doesn't check. But he checks the money box. He checks the Baylor box. He checks the relationships box. He checks the Scott Drew box, which, again, is the most important box to me, is the Scott Drew box. I care about that one. If you don't, I think you need to reevaluate what you think is important for Baylor. He checks all the boxes, except he's never been an AD before. And he was a head associate under both McCaw and Mack Rhodes. Which I also find it funny. I find it funny that some of the people who are loudest about hating this hire want us to go back to like the McCaw-Briles era. Bro, we literally just hired a guy who was a pivotal part of that era. He was a pivotal part of the athletic department in that era that you miss. Give him a shot. Like, he wants that era of success back also. Let him try. Let him do it. And if he bombs, we'll fire him. Okay. Now we're getting comments about hymns instead of contemporary music. I love it. Man, it's been a lively discussion. I've got to go in a little bit, get prepped for the Mosley show. Yeah, but again, just to paraphrase for those of you who joined late, you can find this whole thing back on YouTube or here on X if you're on with us on X. I'm bullish on the hire. I'm bullish primarily because I trust Scott Drew. I think signing Scott Drew to a lifetime contract is the second most important thing the new AD was going to have to do. I think Scott Drew is the most valuable asset this athletic department has. And I think if Scott Drew believes in him, I believe in him. That's number one. Number two is he has a vision for how to rake in corporate money that is tied to Christian faith. And you have to do that. If you're going to get into the super conference in 3 or 4 years, if you're going to compete with BYU and Texas Tech and what they're doing in NIL and revenue, he has a vision to do it. I don't know that other ADs would. It is a bold decision by Dr. Livingstone. It is not a safe decision because it could utterly fail. It could also work. And, you know, in this age, we want to be impatient and see it work now. We want to see Dave get fired now. We want to see wins now. Dude, everything takes time. Let's give it 3 years. Give it 3 years. I have a feeling in 1 year, we'll have a new football coach. We'll probably have a better stadium atmosphere. In 2 years, we might be selling beer at the stadium. In 3 years, we might have a winning football team again. But it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen today. Let the man cook, as they might say, right? I love it. I love it. Bring back the live bears. Oh my gosh, my phone has been blowing up while I've been live here. This is amazing. Okay. Nothing about the AD stuff though. Hey, Bear the Truth, what's happening with Please Bear With Me moving forward? Thank you for asking that. Because I did say some things when we closed out a couple Sundays ago. We want to keep doing the show. Terrence and I both. I'm sorry Terrence isn't here today. I went rogue on him, went solo. We want to keep doing the show. Terrence and I are pretty committed to it. I think especially as we're in this kind of prove it year for McNamee and Aranda, we want to do the show. We've received a lot of support to continue doing the show. Rogue Media and Corey Dickman have heard a lot of support for the show. So thank you if you're one of those who's offered that for us. I hate to draw a very awkward parallel. The reality is it's about money and time. And we could do this show a lot bigger and better with more resources, of course. We just did it for this season for free with some rogue resources, right? Rogue and 365 Sports are going through some changes, which is good and fine. I don't know where those changes put Terrence and I don't know what is the best path to make sure you can keep consuming this content and supporting the show if you want. And again, I'm not just talking about me and the show for no reason. Someone asked in the comments, so I'm trying to answer. So I'll say it again. DM me on X. Email me, Scotty@roguemedianetwork.com, if you can support the show. And I guess what I would say is the goal is to do the show again this next year and moving forward if we can, but we need the resources and we need the partnership that's right. And I don't know if we have it yet. And I think Rogue would say the same thing. I had conversations about this yesterday. Okay. We need the partnership to be right and the commitment to be right. And so, you know, there's a lot of ways that could look. And if you want to be involved, you can shoot me a DM on X, shoot me an email, Scotty@roguemedianetwork.com. Some of you watching have my phone number. Shoot me a text and let's figure out how to make it work. And I think for the right arrangement, this show could be even bigger and better. Or at minimum, we come back and do the same thing next year, but we need the support. So appreciate the question. I need to go. Mosley show at 1 o'clock. We will be talking about this hire more. Matt was there at the presser yesterday. Asked the best question, by the way. Matt asked the question about, have you spoken to Dave Aranda and what have those conversations been like? So the question he needed to be asked, Matt asked, was thankful for that. We'll talk about it more on his show at 1 o'clock. I'll be involved in that. You can find that on YouTube. Look for the Matt Mosley Show, and that would be great. I'm going to do at least one more of these episodes soon to talk about basically all the drama that's led us to this week. The things I was hearing about the coaching search that didn't happen, the things I heard about the AD search that did happen. It was a roller coaster, man, being an insider. And I know you probably witnessed that if you're subscribed to Sick'em 365. You probably witnessed that just watching certain people tweet. We talked to Mac Engel for Fort Worth Star Telegram yesterday for Pete's show, and off the record, kind of not off the record, but like when we weren't on the air, he talked about being surprised by some of the Baylor moves, especially retaining Aranda, because most of us who are tied in and have sources, we're getting a different message. So I do want to share that story about you. Appreciate all your support. I'm seeing the support in the comments. Thank you so much. Again, DM me on X. Please bear with me. Email me, Scotty with a Y at roguemedianetwork.com. Shoot me a text. Let's figure out a partner together and keep the show going. But otherwise, I'm very thankful for you anyway. My name is Scotty Swingler. I'm going to sign off. Join us on the Mosley Show at 1 o'clock. I will probably host Pete's show tomorrow as well. If you want to jump in the Pete Souza show, we'll talk about this some more. Thanks for tuning in. This has been a special emergency edition of Please Bear With Me. Talk to you soon.